This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, Rune Scribble, Legendary Ray Ray, and Kitsu the Kitsune, and brought to you by 212th Trooper who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member, and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, you'll get to make a video request every month, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Now, before we get into today's story, I just want to ask you to do me a favor. Hit that like button, since it tells YouTube you enjoy what I do, and check whether you're subscribed, since only about a quarter of my viewers are, and it's a free way to keep up to date with all my content. In return, I'll do all I can to keep making regular quality content for you. Thanks, and let's hop in. Turning back to Bruce, Izuku's expression and tone are equally outraged, as he demands to know why on earth he would ever make a deal with a monster like Chisaki. And more importantly, what did he promise him? Being smart enough to preempt the younger Batman's fears, Bruce assures him their agreement has nothing to do with Eri, and that he has taken pains to ensure Chisaki doesn't know he has her, nor will he ever know, since whatever Izuku might think of his morals and priorities, he, Bruce, would never abandon a child in his care. Something in the way he says this, and the way his jaw and fist clench, suggests to Izuku that this was yet another lesson Batman learned the hard way, though in spite of himself, he does believe him. Nonetheless, this does not answer his question, with the green-haired youth pressing once again, to which Bruce explains that in exchange for Chisaki's services as a spy, he has agreed to give the other man a couple of DNA samples that he can experiment with using his overhaul quirk, since from what the guards at Tartarus told him, the former Yakuza boss has been obsessed with him and his wrong matter ever since their fight at the hideout. Seeing the logic in this, Izuku does not argue, though he still insists on being part of this meeting with Chisaki, a concession Bruce has no problem granting, since this is why he brought the boy, plainly admitting that he's trusting him to be his moral light and to make sure he doesn't go too far down his old path in the name of stopping the MLA. With this settled, the two Batmen climb out of the car, while a very antsy Chisaki scowls that Bruce took his time and he better have brought what he requested. In a flat tone that suggests he views the other man with the same contempt as the trash littering the alley, the American hero states that he has, pulling Chisaki's plague mask from the back of the Batmobile and tossing it to him. Figuring he doesn't need to know how his former mentor got that, Izuku instead keeps his eyes trained on the criminal as he affixes the mask and seems to calm down significantly now that he doesn't have to breathe in the dirty air any longer. Enough so that he actually takes note of the boy for the first time, turning his yellow eyes upon Izuku and smugly quipping that he hadn't expected to see him here. Refusing to engage in small talk with Eri's abuser, the younger Batman simply shoots him a glare that makes the eyes of his suit burn brighter. While moving between them, Bruce questions what Chisaki has uncovered for him. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Dick and Ochako continue their own patrol. For the most part, things are quiet, as though everyone is holding their breath in anticipation of the next big move, with this giving the pair a chance to speak, as Ochako questions Dick on why he chose to stand with Bruce after everything he did. Having figured such a question might be coming, Nightwing replies that he didn't always. In fact, he ended their partnership years before the Justice Lord's fiasco when he started to see the signs that Bruce had that kind of darkness within him. However, in time he learned to judge people not on who they might become, but on who they are and what they do. Now, make no mistake, Bruce has done some truly monstrous things and he's not excusing those by any means. But by the same token, Bruce has also given everything he has and everything he is to making up for those mistakes. So when he put out the call for allies against Lord Superman, he didn't hesitate to join him, and he doesn't regret it even with everything they've lost. Sighing deeply, Ochako admits that she doesn't know, since she doesn't think someone who has done these things should ever be considered a hero, with this making Dick chuckle slightly, as he replies that she'll probably hate to hear it, but she and Bruce are in agreement there. When they arrived in this world, he didn't want to sign up for a hero license, preferring to work as a vigilante at first, though it was actually All Might who convinced him to change his mind, something that up until that point had seemed impossible. Curiously, Ochako asks how he did that, which Dick replies that after hearing Bruce's story, he still smiled at him and encouraged him to get his license, since as he saw it, the title of hero isn't about being good, it's about doing good. So if Old Bats wants to help people as a means of atonement, the best way he could do that was under the auspices of the Hero Commission. The next day, Bruce turned himself in and began the process of getting certified, though he never forgot what All Might said to him, and he's always tried to live up to those words, even if his and All Might's methods haven't always been the same. Evidently, Ochako is not so sure on this front, questioning if he really thinks giving Izuku a quirk-destroying bullet made from Eri's torture counts as doing good. And while Dick admits that he doesn't, he is also quick to point out why Bruce may have. He did not give away that bullet lightly, instead framing it as a last resort, since he knew it would weigh heavily on the boy. But when the choice is between saving lives or being able to sleep comfortably at night, well, there's a reason Bruce dresses up as a nocturnal creature. Looking pensive, Ochako confesses that she never thought of it that way, though that still doesn't excuse him using something so evil, a claim Dick does not refute, instead simply telling her these are the questions every hero must grapple with. Though it's clear she has a good head on her shoulders and a lot of heart, no wonder Bruce sees potential in her. With this, the pair continue their patrol, returning to Wayne Tower around 10 PM where Izuku and Bruce are waiting for them, evidently troubled by something that happened while they were out. Empathetically, Ochako asks Izuku what's wrong, to which the younger Batman explains what he and Bruce learned from Chisaki. The MLA planned to launch their nationwide coup on February 16th in honor of Destro's birthday, which means, like it or not, they have less than 2 months to prepare for the greatest threat they and Hero Society as a whole have ever faced. Meanwhile, over with the Meta Liberation Army, they are facing a threat of their own, not from the heroes who are throwing in the towel or else rallying behind them, but from within, as suddenly Twice bursts into Destro's office, a kitchen knife brandished threateningly in his hand as he declares that he's gonna kill Asshole for Toga. But honestly, he's a great boss and he really appreciates the dental plan. Having known this was inevitable from someone as unstable as Twice, even if he wishes he hadn't interrupted his meeting, Destro doesn't even look up from his guests, instead simply sending a pre-written email to Skeptic requesting he handle this, and then continuing on like nothing had happened. Naturally, Twice does not take kindly to this, erratically asking what the Supreme Commander's doing. He's here to kill him. Though, before he can even take a step closer, a pair of Skeptic's Twice puppets appear behind him and grab him by the arms, with one taking the knife, while the other more cruelly takes his mask. As expected, this causes the genuine Twice to fall silent, and excusing himself for a moment, Destro looks up to paternalistically ask if he'd like to try that greeting again, maybe with an apology for barging in. Gulping loudly, Twice stammers out a shaking apology, while attempting something like a bow despite being held in place by the puppets, with this earning smirks and snickers from a couple of the onlookers. However, in contrast, Destro looks pleased and almost proud as he assures his erratic subordinate that it is quite alright, and that he is not angry with him. After all, what point is there to being angry with a clone? At once, Twice's pupils shrink to pinpricks, while in that shaking voice he attempts to question the claim that he's a duplicate. Though maintaining that air of supreme confidence, Destro asserts that he is a clone. But that's okay, since that means he's not responsible for his choices. He's just playing out the script of his real self. Were Twice in a more robust state of mind, perhaps he would have challenged this assertion, though stripped of his mask in the company of others who share his face and give credence to the commander's words, he crumples inwards, accepting his status and allowing himself to be hauled away. When he is gone, the only attendee who did not laugh or smile questions why Destro keeps a mad cur like him around, since surely he's more of a hindrance than an asset. Though, turning his eyes upon him now, the Meta Liberation leader smiles that Hawks may be a skilled hero, but he has much to learn about leadership. A cur's weakness, properly manipulated, can be a sharp tool, and he has many uses still left for Twice. First and foremost, he is quite literally a one-man army, and if that army's source is convinced that it has no identity of its own, then he can mold it into his image. And second, Twice's quirk provides something that even Skeptic's puppets cannot, a true replica. Should the Hero Commission succeed in assassinating him, as they no doubt must be planning to, Twice serves as his failsafe, since he can create an exact copy of him that can carry on his noble work and act independently without needing to be guided like the puppets do. Looking intrigued by his leader's ingenuity and contingency planning, another of the hero defectors asks just how perfect this duplicate is. In fact, how can they be sure they're not speaking to a clone right now? Laughing affably, though his smile does not reach his eyes, Destro assures him that he is the genuine article, since a clone has two noticeable flaws. First, it can only withstand limited physical damage before it ceases to exist. For example, if he were foolish enough to strike his living statue of Tomura Shigaraki, it would not so much as crack due to Gatten's skillful craftsmanship, whereas his double would come apart entirely and be reduced to sludge. Though for him, the greater failing is the second weakness, as a clone only has its template's immediate memories. Slotting himself back into the exchange, Hawks angles a faint frown at the other hero, as though rebuking him for trying to steal the Supreme Commander's attention, though when his eyes return to Destro, it is with his signature easy confidence, while remarking this latter flaw must be a serious problem for a great man like him who has spent his life cultivating their movement and mapping its every strategy. To lose such a mind would be a heavy blow to the Meta Liberation Army. Tittering once more, the long-nosed leader assures the young hero that he has already taken pains to prevent such a loss and ensure that his ideals live on even if he does not, much as Destro did. Though, his opus is not a manifesto, as there is no need to deviate from the one his noble ancestor wrote. Instead, he has compiled a record meant only for his successor, distilling his history and vision into a guide that will endure beyond him, so that no matter what challenges are placed before them, the MLA will have sound stewardship as they move forward to victory. Though his fondest hope is that these documents go unread, as he has every intention of living to see the day when Destro's ideology is giving the respect it so rightfully deserves. Unfortunately for the heroes, that day is drawing closer all the time, as December very quickly bleeds into January, putting the countdown to just under a month. In an attempt to preempt what is coming, the Hero Commission along with numerous hero agencies convene to formulate a strategy, with Batman Inc. serving as one of them. As a result, Bruce, Dick, Izuku, and Ochako are present, along with familiar faces like Kirishima and Fat Gum, Todoroki and Hawks, and Bakugou, Mirio, and Sir Night-Eye. Recognizing what a threat the MLA have become, the Commission do not beat around the bush, explaining that what they have planned is an out-and-out war, in which every hero who still believes in the ideals of their society must be prepared to fight, kill, and possibly die in the line of duty. This militaristic rhetoric does not sit well with Izuku, reminding him far too much of the slippery slope the Justice Lords fell down, with it being clear the Dark Knight feels likewise when their eyes meet. Nonetheless, they do put more time into their training in the weeks to come, with Bruce and Dick working hard to ensure that Izuku and Ochako have the wherewithal to survive the coming war against an enemy who clearly does not have the same compunctions about killing as they do. However, this is not to say that the two men do not take time to consider their charge's needs, as on February 14th, when Izuku and Ochako arrive at Wayne Tower for their usual work-study shift, Bruce informs them that he's decided to give them the day off, since they've put in good work, so he doesn't want them running themselves ragged just 2 days before the big battle. Instead, they should use this as an opportunity to enjoy themselves, since they've earned some downtime, and there are hard days ahead. Grateful for the chance to get some rest after the intensive training, but not quite ready to go home since they won't be expected for a few more hours, Izuku asks Ochako if there's anything she'd like to do. Looking thoughtful, the brunette suggests that maybe they could try that cute little cafe they found last week when Mr. Wayne put them on the new patrol route, an offer Izuku is more than happy to take her up on, with the pair swapping their costumes for coats and gloves before heading out together. Due to being Valentine's Day, such a romantic venue is full to bursting when they arrive, though that's alright, as taking their orders to go, Izuku and Ochako step out of the crowded cafe and back into the cold February air, their eyes already set on a nearby park. As they go, they make sure to stay close, their shoulders tucked into each other against the chill while steam rises from the openings in their cups, as well as from their breath when they speak, making them laugh. By now they are near the lake, which is frosted over slightly but is not yet frozen solid, with this being a cause for concern in Izuku's eyes. As spotting a group of children playing nearby, he worriedly states that he hopes they don't try to skate on that, with it being so Izuku that Ochako can't help but giggle, while the boy nervously asks what's the matter, a blush forming on his face. Or maybe it's the cold. Maybe if she's lucky, he'll think the pinkness in her cheeks is just the weather too. Finally, as the sun starts to get low, the duo find a bench, though it too is half frozen, with Ochako yelping slightly as the cold metal presses against the back of her legs. Seeing this, the green-haired boy is quick to offer his scarf, unwrapping it and laying it on the bench so she can sit more comfortably, even if it does mean moving a bit closer to him than she'd planned. For a time, Izuku and Ochako sit in silence, though it is not awkward, nor is it entirely peaceful, with it feeling as though they're on the precipice of something and just need that small push to cross over. Finally, Izuku takes a breath, seemingly about to speak, though before any sound can leave his lips, he hesitates, his mouth hanging half open, before he hastily fills with a long sip of drink, and his cheeks erupt in crimson. Having been looking over in preparation to say something herself, this is not lost on Ochako, though feeling no need to comment now, she instead turns her gaze to the steam rising from her cup, and gives it a small, contented smile. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Todoroki, as a more solitary individual, is keeping up his duty of patrolling, having honestly forgotten it was Valentine's Day, and honestly not caring much either way. That is until he receives a text from Hawks, telling him to look up, as the man descends from the sky to land beside him and fling an arm around his shoulder. In a breezy tone, the acting #1 hero sighs that Shoto really is non-stop, isn't he? To which the boy nods, plainly replying that his dream is to be the best hero he can be, and that he won't stop until he is. Chuckling slightly at this earnest answer, Hawks agrees that he's sure he'll make a great hero someday, though as the best one around if the charts are to be believed, he's got some advice for Shoto. It's okay to have fun sometimes. So how about it? Wanna come meet some friends of his? Seeing no reason to refuse the young man who's been mentoring him for the last few months, Shoto calmly accepts, with the pair catching a taxi that takes them away from the hustle and bustle of the city centre and out towards the industrial district, all the while Hawks chats casually with his student, assuring him that he's gonna have a lot of fun with his friends. About 20 minutes later, the pair arrive at the destination Hawks had given the driver, a nondescript warehouse in a line of similar buildings. Truthfully, Shoto is a bit confused as to why his teacher would bring him here, though, applying some insight the way he's seen Midoriya do, he notices this is a wide space with a high roof, so maybe Hawks used this place to train with other pros, and is inviting him to a high-level training session for his quirk. That would definitely qualify as fun. Stepping inside, the warehouse is pitch black, though evidently knowing this place well, Hawks lays a hand on Shoto's shoulder and guides him further in, only stopping when the wing hero says so, calling this spot perfect. As if this had been some cue, light bursts into life along the ceiling, revealing they are not alone, as 36 men and women close in around them, and while most of them are strangers, the burned boy does recognize two of the faces from TV, Curious and Redestro. Worriedly, Shoto turns to face Hawks, assuming they've been ambushed, though in contrast, the blonde man is all smiles as he looks up at the various floating cameras and quotes that he figured chocolates wouldn't cut it, so he brought them the number one's kid. Happy Valentine's Day! Gasping theatrically, Curious purrs that he shouldn't have. Though adopting a coy voice, Hawk admits that he couldn't help himself. He's just so in love. In a cute faux swooning tone, the blue-skinned woman eagerly asks if that love is for her, with this earning a flash of his trademark grin, as he states that while she's a beautiful woman, they both know his heart belongs to the Metal Liberation Army. At this, the cameras all shut off, having gotten exactly what they need. While still dumbfounded at this betrayal, Shoto remains silent as he is shoved forward, Hawks' guiding hand on his shoulder now having become an iron grip. Stepping forward to receive his prize, Redestro is quick to praise the traitorous hero, smiling that he did exceptionally. While smiling in a way that does little to hide his evident pride, Hawks replies that it was his pleasure, since with the Todoroki boy as their hostage, the Hero Commission won't dare to launch their assault for fear of proving they are just like his father, indifferent to the kid's suffering so long as they get to hold on to power. Tittering approvingly at Hawks' devious streak, Redestro admits that he will miss having the man as his double agent, but the optics of the acting number one hero declaring for them is just too good to pass up, especially now. Nodding his understanding, Hawks then detaches himself to celebrate with his fellow liberationists at yet another successful mission, while taking hold of Shoto in the younger man's stead. Redestro simpers that he has nothing to be afraid of, since unlike the crass league of villains, he has no intention of chaining him up or demanding he join the army. He simply wishes to have him close, so they can witness the course of history change together. Won't that be fun? Unfortunately, it seems not everyone is having an equally enjoyable time, as the following morning the video of Hawks' defection is on every news platform and social media site, with many taking it as the ultimate proof of the MLA's victory, since they not only exposed the old number one hero as an abusive monster, but now the charming new number one just declared for them while Endeavor's kid was with him. So maybe they have the right idea after all, and it is time for a change. Even among those who are not receptive to their ideology, it is impossible to ignore how powerful the liberationists have become with a hero like Hawks on their side, so that as evening falls, the Hero Commission are forced to take a drastic step, inviting Redestro to their headquarters to discuss terms. Having anticipated this could be one of the outcomes of his latest PR bombshell, Redestro is happy to accept, arriving a few hours later in the dead of night, flanked by skeptic, curious, and of course the cameras, so this will no doubt be a moment worthy of documenting for posterity. In contrast, the Commission top brass are a haggard, wilted bunch, their cheap suits hanging lank and limp while their heads do the same, with most not even being able to meet Redestro's eyes as he chirpily shakes their hands. That is aside from one man, Sir Night-Eye, whose suit is as crisp as his professionalism, though his hand is the only one the Supreme Commander does not shake, not out of personal or professional enmity, but because a few of the hero defectors warned him of his quirk, a fact he informs Night-Eye of in a placid tone, all the while his eyes glint mischievously, as if daring the bespectacled man to try and lay a hand on him. However, Night Eye does not rise to the bait, remaining cool as ever as he states that hopefully these talks will be fruitful and they can reach an agreement that is mutually beneficial and enable them to avoid any unpleasant confrontations, such as the one at Tartarus. Taking this as the signal to begin, both parties take their seats, with the MLA as the ones in the dominant position going first as they state their terms: an end to all quirk-based legislation and criminalization, the abolition of heroes and the institutions that trained them, and restitutions to everyone who has been unfairly oppressed for who they are and what they can do. In return, the militant arm of the Metal Liberation Army will stand down and allow this new version of society to operate without fear of reprisal, so long as quirk use remains free and uninfringed. Naturally, this is a lot for the Commission to take in, especially since not all of it is within their power and will require approval from other branches of the government. However, they do appear at least open to considering it, albeit with some concessions of their own, such as evidence of Shoto Todoroki's continued safety, and the surrender of dangerous criminals like Chisaki and Muscular, who may have utilized quirks in their crimes, but whose offenses were not strictly speaking quirk-based crimes. As is always the way with such negotiations, it quickly becomes a tedious, drawn-out affair, as every clause is pushed, twisted, and relitigated just when it seems to be settled. Though, in this case, this is not due to bureaucratic inefficiency, but rather careful planning, as around the second hour, just when it seems like Destro is fatiguing under the weight of boredom and frustration, the Commission spring their trap, having a sniper on a nearby rooftop open fire on the MLA commander. Suddenly, Destro jerks, though not in the way they had hoped, as instead of collapsing forward, his arm shoots outward, having grown half a dozen times its previous size and length, while his skin is now a mottled brown. Whether not bad enough, the bullet that had been meant to kill him is now held neatly between his giant thumb and index finger, while in a voice that rumbles with power, Destro scowls that dealing with scum always stresses him out. On this declaration, the rest of him grows in size and bulk, so that soon the lanky businessman is replaced by a monstrous ogre whose other hand sweeps out to knock several of the Commission bigwigs through the glass wall, so they go plummeting to their deaths. A second later, two more are crushed beneath his massive fist, as he snarls this is what hero society is at its core: corruption and deceit. He came here as an envoy of peace, and they attempted to assassinate him, so now they shall see how they enjoy having their own form of justice revisited upon them. With each word, more Commission staff die, either by being crushed, flung, or disintegrated when Destro reveals his ability to create dark energy blasts, all the while Curious' cameras keep rolling. Having avoided the initial sweep thanks to his hero training, Night Eye turns his attention to helping the other survivors, spotting Mr. Mera flat on his back, evidently in shock at the level of carnage unfolding before him. Unfortunately for the man, stillness will not save him from Destro. Quite the opposite, in fact, as spotting a weak target, the villain prepares to fire another of the dark energy attacks, forcing Night Eye to leap in and shove him out of the way. However, this comes at a terrible cost, as much of the hero's right side is caught in the blast, consuming his dominant arm along with much of his torso. Ever the realist, Night Eye pragmatically concludes that unless he receives immediate medical attention, he will die. However, if he leaves to seek care, everyone here will be killed, and Destro will be free to rampage through the city, resulting in an incalculable number of casualties. Therefore, the answer is obvious, with Night Eye forcing himself back to his feet as he prepares to confront the monster. Slowing his breathing so that he might reduce his heart rate and avoid bleeding out prematurely, the Vision hero thinks back to the 3 tenets of combat he taught bakugou, as he first watches his opponent. For the most part, Destro's combat style is simplistic, brutal, though with an air of showboating that tells Night Eye that the man is viewing his every action through the lens of perception, and possibly even history. This makes the second step, predicting his next move, much easier, since if he can position himself as the most important target, he can probably draw the monstrous man's attention onto him. Ironically, he had been chosen to be the only hero present specifically because he is not known to be a physical threat who might set Destro on edge, though what he lacks in raw brawn, he more than makes up for with brains. As looking the Supreme Commander squarely in the eye, he coldly states that he doesn't know what makes him more pathetic, that he uses cheap theatrics in the words of his more intelligent ancestor to give weight to his naked ambition and base thuggery, or that he is a coward, since like the sniveling worm he is, he waited until the real heavyweights like All Might and All For One were gone before coming out to claim the crumbs. As he had hoped, this systematic attack on everything he is and values is enough to enrage Destro and give him tunnel vision, which means it's time for the final tenet: act fast. Drawing one of his weighted stamps from inside his suit jacket, Night Eye throws it, aiming directly for the head, since a decent hit should be enough to concuss, while a clean strike at center mass could snap Redestro's neck. Unfortunately, due to using his non-dominant and only remaining hand, his attempt goes wide, striking just above the eye, so the villain is dazed but not defeated. Knowing time is short, Night Eye yells for those still alive to get back or clear the room if they can, promising to do all he can to keep them safe. Then, with the last of his strength, he takes hold of his final stamp and throws it. Having used his genius intellect to adjust for his left hand, this time he strikes true, landing a blow so that as he falls forward, so does a mortally wounded Redestro, ending the threat of the MLA and allowing society to return to normal. Or at least, that is what he thinks until the body of Redestro begins melting into slime, signifying that it was one of Twice's duplicates all along. Mockingly, both Skeptic and Curious tell the few surviving commissioners and the rapidly fading Night Eye that their commander saw through their little trap with ease, before snapping their own thumbs and returning to slime as well. As this happens, the clock strikes midnight, as if time itself is declaring the end of the hero's day and the start of the MLA's. Though, more pressingly, this means February 16th is officially upon them, and with it, the start of Redestro's war. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.